Let's start with the tragic event in Santo Domingo, the capital of the Dominican Republic. On April 8th, the roof of the Jet Set nightclub collapsed during a concert, with horrific consequences. At the time of the incident, there were hundreds of people in the club enjoying the live music of a popular local band. According to the news, the roof gave way under the weight of heavy rain that had been going on all day, and the old structure of the building, which had not undergone major repairs for several decades. The collapse happened suddenly. Huge chunks of concrete and metal fell right on the dance floor, where the most people were. Footage taken by eyewitnesses shows people panicking and trying to get out from under the rubble, while screams and chaos filled the surrounding area. According to the latest data, the death toll has reached 79 people, and more than 223 received injuries of varying severity. Rescue efforts continued throughout the night, with firefighters, police, and volunteers clearing the rubble to find survivors. Local authorities have already launched an investigation to find out who is to blame for this tragedy and why the building was not checked for safety before the concert. This disaster was a real shock for the entire country, reminding us how important it is to monitor the condition of buildings, especially those where large crowds of people gather. Do you check how safe the places you visit are? Maybe you should pay more attention to such details? Now let's move to Monterey, Kentucky, USA, where a massive flood occurred on April 7th. On this day, heavy rains hit the region, which lasted for more than 12 hours, causing a sharp rise in the water level of the Kentucky River. Water began to rapidly flood streets, households, and farms, turning Monterey into a real water chaos. Footage taken by locals shows cars being washed away by raging streams and people trying to save their belongings while standing knee-deep in water. According to local authorities, more than 500 homes were flooded, and about 1,000 people had to be evacuated. The flooding also destroyed several bridges and roads, making it difficult for rescue services to reach the affected areas. The mayor of Monterey declared a state of emergency and asked for federal assistance to speed up the recovery efforts. Environmentalists note that such floods are becoming more frequent due to climate change, which leads to more intense rainfall. Fortunately, there were no casualties, but the damage is estimated at millions of dollars, and many families will have to start life from scratch. This story reminds us how vulnerable we can be in the face of the elements. Do you have a plan in case of a flood? Maybe you should prepare a supply of food and water in advance to be prepared for such situations? Next, we will head to Hermel, Lebanon, where a powerful sandstorm broke out on April 8th. On this day, a strong wind blowing from the Syrian desert lifted tons of sand and dust into the air, creating a huge sand wall that covered the city. Footage taken by eyewitnesses shows the sky turning orange and visibility dropping to almost zero. Locals say the sand got everywhere, into households, cars, and even into the lungs, causing breathing problems for many people. According to Lebanese authorities, the storm lasted for more than 6 hours, during which time several accidents were recorded on the roads due to poor visibility. The sandstorm also damaged power lines, leaving about 3,000 homes without power. Health services reported an increase in the number of calls complaining of breathing problems, especially among children and the elderly. Meteorologists explain that such storms are becoming more frequent in this region due to desertification and drought caused by climate change. This sandstorm has become a real test for the residents of Hermel, reminding us how important it is to be prepared for such natural phenomena. Do you know how to protect yourself during a sandstorm? If you suddenly find yourself in such a situation, try to find shelter and cover your face with a cloth so as not to breathe in the dust. Now let's move to the Philippines, where the Kanlaon volcano erupted on April 8th, and this spectacle was captured from an airplane. On this day, the volcano, located on the island of Negros, suddenly came to life, throwing an ash column 4,000 meters high into the sky. Passengers on a flight flying nearby were able to capture this incredible spectacle on video. The footage shows a huge column of ash rising above the crater and hot pyroclastic flows, a mixture of hot gas, ash, and rocks, rapidly rolling down the slopes. The eruption was accompanied by loud explosions that could be heard for many kilometers. Authorities immediately evacuated more than 15,000 people from nearby villages, and local airports temporarily suspended flights due to ash, which could damage aircraft engines. Scientists from the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology reported that the eruption caused minor earthquakes in the region, and the volcano could continue to be active for weeks. Ash covered an area of more than 100 square kilometers, including several towns, which was a serious blow to local farmers whose crops were destroyed. Fortunately, there were no casualties, but this was one of the most powerful eruptions in recent years, a reminder of how dangerous volcanoes can be. Would you like to see an eruption from a plane? If you find yourself in such a situation, be sure to follow the instructions of the crew and stay away from dangerous areas. The next incident occurred in the Zabaykalsky Krai, Russia, where in April a fire blocked traffic on the Baikal highway between the villages of Lesnoy Gorodok and Kvoyny. The fire broke out in a forest area near the highway due to careless handling of fire. According to preliminary data, one of the drivers threw away an unextinguished cigarette butt, which caused the fire. Dry grass and strong wind contributed to the rapid spread of the flames, and soon the fire spread to the trees, creating a wall of fire more than 3 meters high. Footage taken by eyewitnesses shows thick smoke covering the road and cars stuck in a multi-kilometer traffic jam. Firefighters arrived at the scene an hour later, but due to strong winds and difficult terrain, extinguishing the fire took more than 5 hours. As a result, traffic on this section of the highway was completely blocked for the entire day, which created serious problems for drivers, especially for those transporting goods. Fortunately, there were no casualties, but the fire destroyed more than 50 hectares of forest, and environmentalists are already sounding the alarm, fearing that such fires could lead to serious environmental consequences. This story reminds us how important it is to follow fire safety rules, especially in forested areas. Do you always put out fires in cigarettes? Let's be more careful to prevent such disasters. Now let's go to Yaroslavl, Russia, where heavy snowfall in April led to transport collapse. Snow began falling in the morning and by midday covered the city with a layer of more than 20 centimeters. Footage taken by local residents shows cars skidding on icy roads and buses and trucks getting stuck in snowdrifts. Visibility dropped to almost zero, which led to dozens of accidents on the city's roads. Many drivers who had already managed to change from winter to summer tires found themselves in a particularly difficult situation. Cars were sliding, and traffic jams stretched for kilometers. Local authorities sent snow removal equipment to clear the streets, but due to strong winds and incessant snowfall, the work was slow. Some areas of the city were left without power due to downed power lines, and public transport was running with significant delays, creating chaos for thousands of residents trying to get to work or home. Meteorologists explain that such snowfall is connected with a cold front from the Arctic, which brought abnormally low temperatures to the region. This snowfall was a real test for Yaroslavl, reminding us that spring weather can be very treacherous. Are you ready for such surprises? Maybe it is worth holding off on changing your tires to summer ones, so as not to get into such a situation? Next, we move to Pennsylvania, USA, where in April, a driver miraculously survived after a rotten tree fell on his car. The incident occurred on a country road where a strong wind that had been blowing for several days toppled an old tree that had long been rotten. The huge trunk fell right on a car that was passing by at the time. The footage taken from a dash cam shows the tree falling with a crash, completely crushing the passenger seats. Luckily, the driver was alone in the car and his seat remained intact, which saved his life. The man was able to get out of the car on his own and call for help, getting away with only minor scratches and shock. According to local authorities, the tree was not inspected for condition, although residents have already complained several times about its emergency condition. This incident was part of a wave of incidents related to strong winds in the region, which have toppled dozens of trees and damaged power lines. The driver later said that he considered his rescue a real miracle and now plans to sue the local authorities for negligence. This story reminds us how important it is to monitor the condition of trees, especially near roads. Do you check for hazardous trees nearby when you park your car? Maybe you should pay more attention to such details? Now let's go to Sergiev Posad, Moscow region, Russia, where in April, snowfall also led to a transport collapse. Snow began falling early in the morning and by lunchtime covered the city with a layer of more than 15 centimeters. Footage taken by eyewitnesses shows how cars, already switched to summer tires, are unable to drive up the mountain, sliding on icy roads. The situation was especially difficult on the Yaroslavl highway near the Central Ring Road, where trucks got stuck, completely blocking traffic. Traffic jams stretched for several kilometers, and drivers spent several hours in them trying to get out. Locals say that snow removal equipment appeared on the roads only in the evening, and before that, people had to clear the way with shovels themselves. In some areas of the city, the power was cut off due to broken power lines, and public transport ran with significant delays, which created chaos for thousands of residents. Meteorologists explain that such snowfall is associated with a cold front from the Arctic, which brought abnormally low temperatures to the region. This snowfall was a real test for Sergiev Posad, reminding us that spring can be very treacherous. Are you ready for such vagaries of the weather? Maybe it is worth always keeping a shovel and warm clothes in the car in case you get stuck in a traffic jam? Next, we will move to Petropolis, a mountainous region of Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, where in April, after heavy rains, an impressive waterfall was formed. Rains that lasted for several days turned local streams into raging torrents, and one of them, flowing down the mountain, created a huge waterfall more than 50 meters high. In the footage taken by locals, you can see how a powerful stream of water thunders down, creating a cloud of spray and a rainbow in the sun. The waterfall has become a real attraction. Tourists and locals came to photograph this spectacle, despite the danger. However, the authorities warned that due to heavy rains, the risk of landslides remains in the region and urged people to stay away from the mountain slopes. Unfortunately, in some areas of Petropolis, the rains led to flooding. Several houses were flooded and roads were washed away, creating problems with transportation. Environmentalists note that such phenomena are becoming more frequent due to climate change and the deforestation of forests that used to hold the soil. This waterfall has become both a beautiful and frightening reminder of the power of nature. Would you like to see such a waterfall? If you decide to go to such a place, be sure to follow the warnings of the authorities to avoid getting into trouble. Now let's head to Gary, Indiana. Rubble. But fortunately, all family members and their pet remained unharmed. The owners later said that they considered it a real miracle, and now they plan to build a more reliable shelter in case of further tornadoes. This story shows how important it is to be prepared for the elements and not to forget about your pets in such moments. Do you have a plan in case of a tornado? Maybe you should prepare a safe place for the whole family, including pets, in advance. The next case occurred in Cincinnati, Ohio, USA, where a severe flood covered the city on April 7th. After several days of continuous rainfall, the Ohio River burst its banks, flooding coastal areas. The footage taken by eyewitnesses shows how water floods streets, parking lots, and the first floors of buildings, turning the city into a real water chaos. The water level in the river reached a record 20 meters, which was the highest in the last 10 years. More than 3,000 people were evacuated, and the damage from the flood is estimated at millions of dollars. The flooding also affected the local Great American Ballpark, where water flooded the lower stands, forcing several baseball games to be canceled. Local authorities worked around the clock to help the victims. Rescue services evacuated people by boat, and volunteers distributed food and warm clothes. Meteorologists explain that such floods are becoming more frequent due to climate change, which leads to more intense precipitation. Fortunately, there were no casualties, but many Cincinnati residents will have to rebuild their homes from scratch. This story reminds us how important it is to be prepared for the elements. Do you know how to protect your home from flooding? Maybe you should prepare sandbags or strengthen the foundation in advance? And finally, we will finish our selection with heavy snowfall in Sochos, near Thessaloniki, Greece. In April, this region, usually warm at this time of year, was covered by abnormal snowfall. Snow began falling early in the morning, and by midday the city was covered with a layer of more than 20 centimeters. Footage taken by local residents shows roads and households buried in snow, while children, despite the cold, happily make snowmen. However, for adults, this snowfall became a real problem. Some roads were blocked, and in some houses, due to strong winds, the electricity was cut off. The temperature dropped to -3 degrees Celsius, which raised concerns about the safety of the orchards, which had already begun to bloom. Local authorities sent snow removal equipment to clear the streets, but the work was slow due to the strong wind. Meteorologists explain that such snowfall is associated with a cold front from northern Europe, which brought abnormally low temperatures to the region. This snowfall was a real surprise for the residents of Sochos, reminding us that nature can be unpredictable even in warm regions. Are you ready for such vagaries of the weather? Maybe it's a good idea to always keep warm clothes and a supply of candles at home in case of a power outage? This is the selection we have today. From a roof collapse in a nightclub to floods, sandstorms, volcanic eruptions, and transport collapses, our planet never ceases to amaze and frighten us with its power. If you like this video, don't forget to like it, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell so you don't miss new releases. And in the comments, write which of these cases impressed you the most. Until next time, friends, and be careful, life can always surprise you.